antenna assembly and soldered in the connections that were needed here. And so I've got my continuity meter going. Got a wire. Let's try it out. I hear sound. Continuous sound. Now for the real test. Hey, look, I'm spinning, I'm spinning. Continuity all the way through. Now, before I did this video, I was getting a little bit of break here. It wasn't quite fully full continuity because whenever I would lift this up a little bit, it breaks. So the cup where the pip sticks up, I just put a little bit of solder in there, and that made enough better joint, I guess, for it to connect. And so I've spun it a few times, make sure that everything works, and so yes, lo and behold, the antenna system is solid. So one of the next things I'm going to need to work on is I need to make, oh Jesus, that thing's driving me nuts here. I need to make a new latch. I went ahead and dummied it in. I needed to see how far this needs to stick out, and it's probably going to be about that. Need to put some sort of pip along here. See if it'll latch up to in here. And then the other thing that I need to do, move this out of the way, is I need to work on the speaker. Now, Speaker Freak 95 is probably going to get a kick out of this. This is the actual speaker unit, and I've got it upside down now that I look at it. It's actually mounted this way. It is a folded horn. This is a headphone element. A giant one, but basically that's all that really is. It goes through here, this long tube, if I'm not mistaken. It then folds around, goes through here, and out she comes. Very unique. This is sheet brass, if I am not mistaken. And the other thing that's unique about it are these two little poles that you see here. There's one here, one here. I just recently resoldered one of them. I think it's probably the one on the top. In fact, I think the one I just soldered on is a little less crooked than the other one. They used to be fairly straight, but they break off. So I just tacked that on. These go to rubber shock absorbers, and there's also a third one which goes right here. So this whole thing is floating on like a rubber shock absorber, and that's just to prevent microphonics, which then goes to the tubes, and then all of a sudden you get distortion. So to get to the headphone element, it just unscrews off. There it goes. This is the exact type that's on the Radiola 25, which is my other 1920 Super Hat. You can see the diaphragm. You can see the diaphragm. A little bit of surface rust, it looks like, and some stuff on here. Other than that, a little bit of dust, but not too much. It works pretty good. So far as I can see, is I went ahead and put a couple of leads on my meter on here, and I was able to get a scritchy scratch sound, so it is working. And everything is all in here, set to go. So the only thing I've got to do is I just got to make sure those are going to be properly straight. I went ahead and took a pocket torch and reset that pole into place. I may have to pop that one off and redo it. I don't know. It was, the top one was originally broke off. I went ahead and redid it, and then I just spritzed some flat black paint on it just to make it look better. But you can see where it's been welded into place. Tried to make it as straight as possible. And hopefully that joint will hold. But that's generally it. Nothing special. Doesn't sound all that great, but it does do the job. This was before true loudspeakers, and which came out about a few years after this did. Now here's going to be the next challenge I'm going to have. I've roughly put these together. They're not 100% accurate, but they're roughly where it needs to go. You have the outer casing of the shock absorber. There's a threaded tip here. It goes into a washer, which I believe... Washer, who's got the washer? There's one, right here. There's also a spacer that goes in here. This screws directly into this, and then you've got this sponge rubber shock absorber, which still has a little bit of sponge left to it, but you can see that was probably originally supposed to be way flat on top, and well, it don't even have any sponge left in it. In fact, you can see in here the indentation where the screw thread, the ridge where the screw went in, the blade, the slot, that's the word I'm looking for. So what I'm going to have to do is I've got to mold some new shock absorbent material. And I just happen to have the stuff to do that with. I have some Silicone Rtv Compound, which will help me do this. So probably what I'm going to do is take one of these, seal up the bottom, and let's see how filled. I don't even know how much I have to fill these things up with, but probably not very much. And then fill these up and pop it out, and I'll have instant shock absorber material. Okay, this is what I'm going to use. It's going to be Silicone Rtv Compound. Looks like the mix ratio is 10 parts to 1 part. And you got about 45 minutes with it. And it'll be a full cure in 24 hours. So I went ahead. I've made 3 little molds. Put some Play-Doh on the top just to keep it from leaking. And I'm going to pour these in. I'll use a couple of solo cups here. My little assistant, Kenzie Kitten. Hi. We're going to pour these in.
You
and we're
can
going to
use my Play-Doh, I don't care.
Yep, that's what I'm doing. And Play-Doh's just there, 1, to keep it in place, and 2, there's that hole in here, and that's going to keep it from leaking out.
Hi.
And I'm going to go on ahead and pour this and see what happens. Made a little too much, but as you can see, the light pink is in place. Some bubbles are starting to appear, but that's alright. It's the bottom part that's going to be, it's the part that's on the bottom that's going to be more important. And they got to be chopped down to size on top of that. So we're going to go on ahead and let that sit for a day, and we'll see how that turns out. Quick check before I go to bed. It's about 1 o'clock. It's been about 3 or 4 hours since I poured the mold, and at first it was real runny. It almost spread like a pink frosting, but now I'm starting to notice it's sticky, but it's holding its form, so it looks like this stuff is curing. I've never seen this kind of stuff before. The other stuff I've worked with is more liquidy. This stuff's kind of a pain in the ass to work with, but all the same, all of this here was like a it's supposed to be a 10 to 1 ratio. So what I did was I did 5 little Play-Doh cups of the white compound to half a cup of the red colorant, not colorant, but well, it's colored that way, but it's the catalyst. So that's a shitload of stuff, but I had the measurements pretty much right. So now, as I'm starting to notice, it is starting to tack up. and I am the more glad for it. Wife's not too happy about me using a knife, but hell, when this stuff cures, I just peel it off, give it a good washing, it'll be okay. And so then what I'll do is after these cure, pop them out, peel all the excess off, probably chopping them in half, and that will give me the shock absorber material I'll need. Then the other fun part is I've got to make shock absorbers for the chassis. 18 hours later, nice and spongy. So here I was all worried about whether it would actually cure or not. Oh yeah, it cured. Like 3 little biscuits. So if I am not mistaken, I'll have to look on the French Collector's website. I think I cut these in half, and that's roughly about the shape and size of the originals. But now, thanks to that stuff, it kind of looks like a Pepto-Bismol nightmare. I now have 3 shock absorbers ready to go. Figured while I have that Pepto-Bismol pink stuff out, I might as well make the shock absorber for the catacomb. You can see how it's been compressed. So I roughly made out the measurements on some cardboard. Put that in, so I'm going to go mix up a little more and let that cure for the day. I've put this off now for long enough. This is now fully cured. Looking at 2 websites, I realize I really don't need these things anymore because they're hardened. Really, the idea is you have 2 pieces of rubber making the shock absorber. So what I've done is, as best as I could, slit it down in half. And what I'll need to do then is to take one of these, drill a hole into it, and then in turn will then go to here, and then after that the other half will go into the container here. Alright, this is how it's supposed to go in. I tried cutting it as even as I could, didn't quite make it, but that's pretty much the gist of it. And then you got this little backing plate and a screw to hold this, and then this piece goes in here, and then the entire assembly, at least on this side, goes onto a bracket, which I'll get ready here in just a minute. I'm going to give you guys a hint if you ever get yourself in a situation like this where you have to do this. If you try to put these 2 cups with that rubber in place, the rubber is just going to stick to this metal and it is not going to make it go anywhere. So what you want to do is cut a couple of cardboard strips and then just tape them down in place and then slide the whole assembly. It's just 10 times better. Then all you got to do is the simple matter of lining up the holes with this side, slipping that out, and then you're ready to go. Pardon my daughter's hand, she insists on trying to clean part of my radio room, but I did want to show you. The main 2 shock absorbers are now on their mount. Hey, be careful. Just got spritzed with Windex. And so what I need to do is install the other side here into the cabinet, and then mount this in, and then this is all set to go. Oh, and also have to put in the headphone element, which I'm going to do right now. And there we are. Speaker is now installed in the cabinet. All set to go. Brand new shock absorbers, all set to go. Kind of tight, but it's now insulated. Heck of a lot better than it was earlier. So later, somewhere underneath here, the wires to that will go over to here. And next thing I got to tackle is, of course, the latch, and then after that, I'm going to start on the inside of the radio.